Hello my loves, I'm Ellie Frost. Thank you so much for being on my channel where we are talking about the multi-dimensional approach to rapidly and radically healing and transforming during and after narcissistic abuse. And I want to talk to you about how the narcissist causes trauma and controls you through trauma, right? So if you know what a trauma bond is, it's the idea that in the narcissistic abuse cycle and in abusive relationships, the narcissist will give you a false sense of security, love bomb you, you'll buy into the illusion of the relationship, and then they'll shock you with something very disturbing. Yeah? And this cycle of then trying to get back to normal, trying to heal, and then being shocked and traumatized again goes on and on and on. And in the human being, it messes up our biology, right? We form attachments to our abusers. Partly, there's a number of reasons, right? This cycle imbalances us. There's also just a simple fact that this is why you've got to be really careful with who you disclose your vulnerabilities to. When we share something very painful with someone, an experience, we feel connected to them because we feel like we've been through something together. A narcissist will often use language like that after all we've been through, yeah, to stop you leaving, after all we've been through. But the thing is, they've caused all the pain. So the human being forms attachment. Stockholm syndrome, which is just a trauma bond, is the idea that when you're living in a difficult situation, when you get a glimmer of relief, so it could just be the narcissist acting normal for a while or doing a few nice things, we get an exaggerated high to it, which accentuates the trauma bond because your normality has been so distorted. So when they do something that would just be normal really in a relationship to care for you, you get this kind of really strong attachment because you've been living in this restriction. Yeah? So they cause all the trauma and they know how it energetically imbalances you to cause a very unhealthy but very compelling attachment, which is called a trauma bond. I want to talk to you about healing trauma, right? So if you can come into something, I'm going to reopen it, probably going to enroll next week, warm up the week after. You do not have to, need to, or is it generally healthy for most people to have to go into details of everything about their trauma? What happens in trauma is you've been through something that was too much for your system. The mind gets stuck in it and so does the body, and the energy field's like this. When your energy field should be fluid, right? So the mind thinks if I could just understand it, if I could talk about it, then I can fix it. But the trauma never, ever gets healed on the level of the mind. You can't solve it on the level of the mind because it's actually occurred on the level of the body where the body hasn't been able to do its natural process in processing the emotion. So you don't need to be re-traumatized. In my work, I do not re-traumatize people. In fact, there's only one exercise in Sovereign where I do, when you're ready for it, I get you energetically ready for it. So you've already cleared, you've already got tools to start processing and healing. And then we go through go through personally, what happened to you and why it was wrong and what you've made it mean, just so you can start looking at your beliefs. So when I take you into manifestation, you see what decisions you've made energetically, but you do that personally. In fact, sharing the details of your trauma does not heal anyone. You'll feel a temporary sense of connection, sometimes your trauma bond to the person you share with. It's very common that people fall in love with their therapist because of it. So going in the nth degree of trauma doesn't heal it. Acknowledging what's happened to you and letting your body do what it needs to do. In my whole program Sovereign, in the energy clearings, I'm always saying, let your body knows what to do. Let your body release what it can each time you go through the things I give you in order to release. People, and I watched something last night of a spiritual teacher that I actually found when I was going through this. There are some people that are narcissistic, including in spiritual positions and that are claiming to be spiritual teachers and healers that are getting off on your pain. The narcissist, let me explain this to you very clearly. The narcissist gets a hit off your pain. They have zero empathy, right? They think you're inferior to them because of your emotions, and they feel powerful about how much your emotions completely disturb your life. It is not uncommon for narcissists, like I've talked about, to feel powerful when someone on the channel, people have talked about it in my groups, and I've come across it over and over again with people, will push someone to suicidal thoughts or behaviours. The narcissist gets a hit. They will not take accountability that they're responsible for pushing you that far. What they get is a power hit that they're kind of like, they are filled with like contempt for you, and they feel powerful that you're so inferior to them that you can go that far, and that they could watch that happen and cause it. They think it's your fault for being weak, that you shouldn't be the way you are emotionally. They think it's an inferior thing. Someone wrote on the channel that someone had said that because they're so devoid of emotions, they're kind of disgusted by them in other people, but they won't take accountability for their part to play in it. But what they will do is antagonize, torment you, and traumatize you as much as possible. They feel powerful. It's how the narcissist feels superior to you. And they think that it's your inferiority for having empathy, for being emotional, that's the problem, not them, and that you should be a lot better than that, right? In terms of completely empty like them and just do everything they want and need you to do. No questions asked, no emotional body intact. So it's a destructive force that just leaves you empty. Right? Because they have to destroy you emotionally. And if they destroy you emotionally, guess what? They've destroyed your whole life. Because your whole life is your emotional experience of life, you see? So what you think and feel every day, well, what you feel emotionally is your whole life. Every day, how you feel about things is your entire life. So they distort that dramatically. They trauma bond you so that you can't leave them, right? And they put you in traps financially. They'll make it very inconvenient if they can for you to leave, but also they make you very trauma bonded to them and very scared of life. They've distorted your view of life, who you are, what you get to do, be and have. It all being distorted by the narcissist. Be mindful. So when you're traumatized, I've talked to you about this before, you'll want to share what you're going through. One, we've got to be more mindful than that. You know, some people are not going to be able to handle your pain either, because it's going to, the way narcissists and people shock people and traumatize them is sometimes, by the way, sharing information that's inappropriate. My dad used to do it. He'd put things on the television that were vulgar sexually and tell me stories about how women got abused. It was completely trauma bonding me as a child. It was inappropriate. It was shocking. And it's part of what they do. So they might tell you things, or they might ask you about, I remember my ex-partner, I thought he was being caring, but in retrospect, in hindsight, no, he was trauma bonding me. He asked me if I'd ever been sexually assaulted before, and about it. And I thought he was positioning it like, he wasn't that kind of man. Oh, he was not a good man at all. But like, the thing is, they want to find your pain, and they want to be the source of it and the comforter of it. That's the kind of trauma bond thing. But like, it's not actually healthy to connect on pain, especially on trauma. So you be mindful, because none of us, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help anyone else. And we've got to be mindful of not traumatizing other people with what we share. Your healing is your job. I know it's hard, but your healing is your job. If you have a lot of trauma, you don't get to go around the planet sharing details that would shock other people. And it doesn't heal you. If it heals you, I would be open to it. It doesn't. That's why being very mindful of these people giving you trauma, alternatives to heal your trauma, and putting you in situations where you relive all your trauma. This is dangerous to the human being. Very dangerous, and keeps you stuck, because the problem with trauma is you're already stuck in the event. And you don't need to revisit it in the way you think you do to actually heal it. You need to shift it out of your energy field, acknowledge it consciously, shift it out, and rewire what the brain has had. But the body naturally wants to process this. It just got stuck. That's all that happened. I've said to you, it's like when you've got a computer open with 100 tabs, and it can't function. You can't look on the internet properly because it's too bunged up. Once you start naturally processing emotions, the body naturally brings up memories, releases these things. That's what happens in my process. But you do not get re-traumatized. You don't have to talk about or try and force and think out every traumatic event, which for a lot of people can put them back in very dangerous situations. And there are some people on the planet claiming to be spiritual that are taking people back to very dark places. Which is totally unnecessary in trauma healing. So be mindful not to do that to other people. It doesn't heal you. It just sort of spews your trauma around when actually this is a private job. Come into Sovereign if you can. I'm also thinking about another group that's going to be ongoing. So let me know what you think of this. One of the biggest things, so Sovereign is where you break the trauma bonds, you heal, you shift your energy, you learn different principles, you learn your value standards, boundaries, you learn about manifestation, you learn about being free of the PTSD, free of the trauma bond, you shift all of that in there and you come home to you. But beyond that, I am conscious about when you leave a narcissist, your life will be better because you won't be siphoned. But a lot of people find it hard to rebuild their life, myself included, hands up. You know, it was good for me to break these cycles. But on the other side of it, it can feel very lonely because most people have family units. If you've had narcissistic family, right, then you're going to feel isolated from them, which can be very painful. And, you know, rebuilding your life is something that you want to connect to people on, but again, a lot of people are not knowing how to connect with life again and create a good life for themselves and let go of it fully, and what to sort of fill their life with, I guess. So I'm thinking of an ongoing group where people will have a place. It's not, but you either need to do Sovereign or you need to be at a level where you're at the stage where you're not enmeshed with narcissists, because Sovereign is for that, breaking the cycle. But this would be for people to connect and to start rebuilding their life again as them, right? Not what they've been through, not what happened to them, not letting all that stuff define them, but actually getting skills and just community to help them go forward in a new way, be brave enough to, you know, grab life, live fully now. So let me know if you're interested in that. Let me know any questions. Lots of love, guys. I'll speak to you soon.